Hey, hello everybody, and welcome to a brand new video. Today I'm going to be going over 10 bad habits of flipping. Now these were pulled from my own experiences, so before you call me a hypocrite, be aware that I know already. So hopefully you can learn a bit and find something useful from these 10 points, and let's get started. So these aren't in any particular order, but starting off at number 1 is probably the most concrete one and easy one to fix, and that is undercutting. Now unfortunately this is something I get caught doing a lot. I try not to do it on higher volume items, but for slower items and stuff that really has not a lot traded per day, I tend to undercut the person. So undercutting is bad for high volume margins and for slower items as well. However, it does affect the high volume margins quite a bit more. If you imagine an item only has a 10 GP margin, if everyone undercuts it by 1 GP, that margin is gone probably within 4 or 5 people. However, if we consider a 100k item with a 20k margin, people are only undercutting by 5 or 10 GP. It's not as big a deal, plus the items just come in a lot slower, so I think it's a little bit more fair to undercut on slower items. However, I get caught undercutting on high volume items as well. Now I think the main reason I've kind of gotten into this bad habit is a lot of my videos are time based, so I feel a pretty large pressure just to make successful flips within, let's say, my 1 hour challenges, but that's not really a good excuse. It's bad for the margins, it's bad for pretty much everyone in total. Just be patient and match the offer. Alright, next up is trying to find hidden flips. Now I find myself doing this quite a bit. I spend lots of time trying to find items that I think nobody would think about, find them with a good margin, then I put the offer in there and it sits for like days. Now after all that time I do end up profiting usually, however usually I would have made a lot more if I just kept it simple and picked some items that while everyone probably knows about, they are good for a reason and will still yield pretty good results and a lot quicker. So items like Archer's Rings, Furies, stuff like that, they still work really well even though a lot of people know about them. Obviously it comes down to your personal preference, but if you're looking to make the most amount of money in the shortest amount of time, these simple items tend to work better. Coming in at number 3 is trying to guess item margins. So I see a lot of people just trying to guess the margins between the items for like really high volume items like Archer's Rings and stuff like that, where you're much better off just price checking the item, instantly buy and sell one, so you know exactly what the margin looks like now. It's going to save you a lot of time and it won't lose you too much money. Obviously you don't want to do this for items like a twisted bow or something. It's better to guess it because you could stand to lose quite a bit of money on that. However, for more average flippers and people doing more everyday items, you should just price check one item so you know exactly what it's at instead of just wasting a bunch of time trying to guess it. Coming in at number 4 is to stick to items with the most profit. I find I have this weird mentality that once I've flipped an item, I tend to want to move on to another one, just trying to diversify. This might have something to do with trying to make my videos more interesting, but for the average player, if you find an item that works really well, just keep doing it. There's no reason to stop unless the margin goes away or you start losing money or something. But barring that, you should really just run an item into the ground. There's no reason not to, just for the sake of having a nicer looking Grand Exchange history or something like that. Coming in at number 5 is don't put all your eggs into one basket. Now this feels a little bit opposite to the last point, however what I mean by this is don't invest every single penny into the exact same item, because if you do happen to lose money on it, you will stand to lose quite a bit. Diversifying is always going to be safer for those who don't want to take really large risks. Now, I'm not saying that you can't continue to do the same item over and over again, as I mentioned in point number 4. However, it should not be your entire capital invested into that one item. Coming in at number 6 is not paying attention to RuneScape updates. Now, I do tend to read most of the updates, but oftentimes I don't really think of them critically and how they would actually affect items or items I even are investing in right now. Taking the time to look at the OSRS update is pivotal if you want to do investments. Also, if you have certain items that you're not using that are part of an update and you think they're going to drop in price, it's better to sell them off or just invest in a separate item instead. This one's not pivotal, although it's something that I find myself wishing that I was paying more attention to. Coming in at number 7 is something I do quite a bit, and that's leaving offers in when you leave for a long period of time. Now there is certain circumstances where you might want to do this. See my 100 account flipping series. Some items are going to be pretty safe to leave offers in for weeks and weeks on end. However, what I'm more talking about is literally just starting to do some flips and then forgetting about them and then coming back a week later to see that you have bought every single one of those items and they have since dropped in price. I'm not saying this can't occasionally work out, however, it's definitely not worth it. Either you're going to not buy any items or you're going to buy all of them and lose money. Coming in at number 8 is being afraid to take risks. Now you shouldn't have a risky investment for every single one of your items, however, there's no reason not to have like 5 or 10% of your money invested into riskier investments or higher margin flips or stuff you're not quite sure about. As you've probably heard a lot, High risk investments tend to yield higher rewards, but also higher losses. So that's why I wouldn't recommend investing all your money in that. But I think everyone should be risk tolerant enough to at least have a portion of their money invested into riskier items. Coming in number 9 is flipping brand new items. Now again, this can work out if you know what you're doing, but more often than not, people who buy brand new items are set to pretty much lose money. Almost always when new items are released, they are in a constant state of crashing for usually almost a week or two before the actual price is kind of determined. So if you're actually trying to flip those items, you have to be very careful. And in my experience, honestly, it's just not really worth flipping on day one. It can work out, but you really have to pick items where you think that their value is actually going to end up higher, or you just have to be very careful on how you flip the items because you have to really lowball the offers because it's constantly declining. So there's a way to do it, but overall I just wouldn't really recommend it too much. And coming in at number 10 is actually probably the most important one that I'm kind of coming to realize recently, and that is not being patient. For me, this has really come down to doing videos with time restrictions. It really has killed my patience. Obviously, you don't want to leave items in for days on end. You do need to cut your losses sometimes. However, just having a little bit of patience can really pay off, even for higher volume flips. Just waiting and maybe taking a coffee break or doing something. Coming back can yield quite a bit more money than just always cutting your losses as soon as an item stops buying or some margin gets cut. Of all these tips, I'd say being patient is probably the most important and vital to being successful at flipping. Anyway guys, that is about it. Hope you enjoyed the video. Do you want to see more kind of videos like this? I feel like I do have a couple more ideas for top 10 ideas or things you shouldn't be doing. Anyway, if you did enjoy it, don't forget to leave it a like, and I will see you in the next one.